सहना भवतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यङ्करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः। We'll read the text, the present crisis.
Chapter 5 The Present Crisis. The need to build the intellect is grave. The mind without intellectual guidance is virtually destroying the human race. Neither the government bodies nor the educational systems are cognizant program in the world to reconstruct, revitalize the obsolete intellect. Educational institutions all over are focused on providing mere information, knowledge laid down by earlier thinkers, scholars, and scientists. To crown it all, there is no thought conceived, no effort initiated, no program prepared to develop the intellect of young students. The knowledge imparted in schools and universities builds their intelligence, while the intellect remains fallow, lacking the attempt to develop it. Thus, the intellect has atrophied totally, and the mind has taken over the human personality. An ungoverned mind is wreaking havoc in the world. Nevertheless, those who understand the present predicament should treat it as a state of emergency. The author of the book has prepared the adequate literature and has founded the Vedanta Academy in 1988, which runs continuous 3-year residential courses. The courses are wholly dedicated and designed to build, strengthen the intellect. Thus, the younger generation around the world has been provided with the literature, tuition, and training for them to construct a powerful intellect. The academy is situated in a pretty hill station 108 kilometers from Mumbai, India. Similar learning institutions with the same literature need to be set up in different parts of the world with the sole objective of resurrecting the fallen intellect. Here is an episode that took place in Chennai, India. It illustrates the stark reality of the intellect vis-a-vis the intelligence in a human being. A defense lawyer was arguing in favor of his client, who was accused for allegedly forging a document. The lawyer released a torrent of legal material and argument in support of his client. The prosecutor opposing the defense possessed a sharp intellect. Even before going into the merits of the case, his intellect spotted a watermark in the document in question. The paper bearing that watermark was manufactured 2 years later than the date appended by the signature in the document. A proof sufficient to establish that the document was forged. All the intelligence with the heavy load of legal knowledge could not match that one brilliant idea of the intellect.
The present crisis is intellect as an instrument that has to be developed is not known. That is the crisis. When you say the present crisis means every generation will go through a crisis like this, where the intellect will be neglected. That is the crisis. What happens if the intellect is neglected? What does a human being lose if the intellect is neglected? At the superficial level, if you look at it, if you look at life, looks like human being has not lost anything. In fact, the intelligence has made life better and better only. Therefore, it doesn't look like a human being has lost anything because of that not focusing on the intellect. That is what you understand when you look at life at a superficial layer. The schools, the universities, the science and technology and all that is making life better and better and better. What is the loss? The question here is, if you look at life at a deeper layer, you'll understand. If you look at life at the deeper layer, if you look at life at, if you penetrate and look into life, then you will understand the lack of intellect is a crisis. So the present crisis is an indication that unless you look at life at a deeper layer, you will not even know that there is a crisis. That's what we have to understand from this topic. Again, I repeat, unless you look at life at a deeper layer, the crisis itself will not be understood. Now, if the crisis is not understood, why will anybody make attempt to get out of the crisis? So, what is the crisis here? A crisis, to understand this crisis itself requires a penetrative capacity. That's where the problem here is. The crisis itself is not an obvious crisis. If it is an obvious crisis, everybody will know. It's not an obvious crisis. There is a crisis. Generation after generation after generation keeps going through this crisis, but it is not seen as a crisis at all. Why? To see this as a crisis, this is where the paradox comes. To see the crisis itself, you need an intellect. To see the crisis itself, you need an intellect. Always the crisis in human life is the mind, the action, the perceptions go ungoverned. This is what is the crisis? When the mind, the actions, the perceptions are ungoverned, unmonitored, not disciplined, that is the crisis. So at any point of time, what do you understand as a crisis? When all these three go unchecked. Second, can anybody from outside guide it and check it? If there's an external factor that can guide it and check it, it is easy. That's why we make so many laws. We make so many laws, and we go on making amendment to the laws also, trying to bring in a. What is the attempt that is being made there? The attempt that is being made there is to make life more governed, organized. When life is governed, organized, it is better. What is the crisis now? The human being is thinking that they have to create a law. They have to make a law is the crisis. Vedanta comes and says there is a law that is already in place. Understand that and obey that. There are two different approaches to life. One is human being assumes that they have to bring in an order. They have to bring in a law. They have to bring in so many things to make life better. Vedanta comes and says there is a law already in place. The law that is already in place is what you need to understand, obey. After understanding, if you think that there is something in the law that has to be altered, try. But first is make an attempt to understand that law. The moment you understand that law, you know that law is so complete, so perfect that all that you need to do is what? Simply obey. That's called Shastra. That law is called Shastra. So intellect, studying and understanding the Shastra, understands the law. Having understood the law, it knows that the mind, the action, the perceptions has to be governed, can only be governed by oneself. No external factor can guide it. You can keep a police, you can keep the law enforcement agencies, you can keep one after another, isn't it? How many enforcement agencies are there? Isn't it? Yeah. They say police department itself has 31 branches. 31 departments of அதை தவிர ஈடின்னு ஒன்று இருக்குது, அதை தவிர வேற என்னமோ இருக்குது, அதை தவிர என்னெல்லாமோ இருக்குது, அப்புறம் எஃப்சி என்னெல்லாமோ இருக்குது, isn't it? How many enforcement agencies has to be brought in to monitor what? All these enforcement agencies are trying what? To bring a discipline to the mind, the actions, the perceptions. And more agencies you bring, more monitoring factors you bring, the one who's trying to bring in the monitoring factors is the one who's trying to break it, violate it also. It is a human being that makes the law, and it is a human being that violates the law. That who made it? They make a law and they violate it. This is called insanity, isn't it? This is lack of intellect. This is the crisis. What is the difference now? In order to handle the crisis, you need to strengthen the intellect. The instrument in you that can become strong only in association with the Shastra, and there is no other way to develop that. That's where he's talking about the Vedanta Academy, the literature being produced, and world needs so many institutions like that. All that is said from what angle? The intellect can be strengthened only by the study of the Shastra. Are you okay till now? This number 2, the study of the Shastra has to be systematic. Number 3, more time has to be given for reflection than tuition. In all other institutions, tuitions are given so continuously that no time for reflection. In 2 years, they cover 35 books. In 3 years, they cover 45 books. Clear? Krishna by mistake spoke about the 12 yajnas, isn't it? In the group discussion, 3 masama sutranga, isn't it? 3 months they are circling. Nothing is moving, isn't it? Krishna is regretting now. Why he gave 12 yajnas? Isn't it? The third important factor is less time for tuition and more time for reflection. That is why the model of Vedanta Academy is brought in for what? Please understand, it's not a fanatic attachment to one institution. It is not because he brought in that institution, it has to be spread all over the world. It's not like that. The 3 vital principles which is not followed anywhere else is what you need to understand. What is the thing? First you need access to the Shastras. Second, it has to be systematic. You can't randomly pick up and read. Number 3, the time of tuition has to be less. The time of reflection has to be more. That's why in Vedanta Academy schedule of teaching, if there are classes for 3 weeks, there won't be any classes for 4 weeks. It should be exactly the opposite. No. It should be exactly where classes should happen morning and evening, morning and evening, morning and evening. How wonderful it will be. Yeah, very good. Lot of Vedanta professors will be churned out. Nothing else will happen. Are you able to follow? Lot of Vedanta professors will be churned out and they will become more dangerous than anybody else. Therefore, the third principle is the time for reflection. The fourth is the reflection is monitored. It's not that they are left to themselves to reflect. The reflection is monitored. This is how the intellect grows. Are you able to follow? That's why he's talking about Vedanta Academy model. In all educational institutions, the tuition time is more, the portions are more, and less time to reflect. Even in a worldly institution, some time has to be given for reflection. Even there, it's not happening. That's the example, that is the lawyer example. Even in a worldly institution, time is very less for reflection. Therefore, what happens? A very few, because of their individual nature, they sit by themselves, reflect, and in that field they strengthen in that field they become very wise and they outshine the rest. But the vast majority even there becomes just a carriers of knowledge, parroting, not knowing what they are parroting. That is the difference between intelligence and intellect. Intelligence is parroting. Intellect is you know what you are talking. And most of the times we don't know what we are talking. That is parroting, isn't it? In a worldly institution, he is giving an example. What happens when there is no time for reflection, and if the reflection is not monitored, what is the difference? That's the lawyer example. What is the lawyer example that he is giving here? I think all of us would have heard this example any number of times. Any number of times would have heard this example. Document is dated 1930 and the paper is manufactured in 1932. Now, which lawyer will look at the manufacturing date of the paper? You go to a lawyer, first thing they will look at and the last thing they will look at it is what? The contents, isn't it? Which person will worry about the manufacturing date of the paper? This man looked at that. This man looked at that, and then the whole case got dismissed in 10 seconds. The entire case got dismissed in 10 seconds. What has happened? He said, look at the paper. Watermark. When you look at the paper, all papers have a watermark, which is a security. You take the Indian currency, you see a watermark there. No. What watermark you will see? That one smiling old man is the one smiling old man is the watermark. Mahatma Gandhi watermark you will see, isn't it? That's a security to the paper. So he said, look at the watermark. What is the watermark? The camel watermark. So he said, are you sure you are seeing only camel? He said, obviously, yes, I'm only seeing the camel watermark. Case is closed. How? The company started manufacturing papers with camel watermark in 1932 onwards, and the document is dated 1930. It is proven that it is forged. Even in a worldly institution, the time has to be given for reflection and the monitoring that reflection. But that's what exams are supposed to do, no, sir. That's what exams are supposed to do, no. It's not, it was meant to be that way, but it is not doing that. It was meant to be that, but it's not doing that. Why? Because of the, that's why we say it's all cramming information, at some point of time, not knowing what you are understanding. So what is the crisis here? The human being needs to have a sharp intellect. That sharp intellect will be able to monitor the mind, the actions, the perceptions. And for the intellect to do, it cannot do it naturally. It needs knowledge. And what kind of knowledge? The Shastric knowledge. It's not just the Shastric knowledge. You buy a book and read it by yourself. When we say Shastric knowledge, it's not just the Shastric knowledge alone. There are steps involved in it. What are the steps? The Shastric knowledge, it has to be taught. It has to be taught systematically. Meaning, what should come first? What should go second? Because intellect grows by knowledge. And knowledge can go into memory directly without understanding and make you think you know. Knowledge can get into memory directly without processing, memorizing, makes you believe you know. Distinct and different from that is where you process it, reflect it, understand it, digest it. After digesting also, it goes into the memory. Straight it can go to the memory, or you can go through this process and go to the memory. People think no time for all this, sir. Because no time for all this. Why? Why there is no time? The mind is in a hurry. The whole society is in a hurry. The whole mind is in a hurry. What is the hurry of the mind? What is the hurry? Anybody? What is the hurry? Maximum profit, minimum time. That is the hurry. What is the hurry? From Chennai, I want to go to America. From Chennai, I want to go to America. Isn't it? How will you plan? How will you plan? Any planning, how do you do? What is the first thing that you look at any planning? எவ்வளவு சீக்கிரம் முடிக்க முடியும், isn't it? Second is எவ்வளவு சீக்கிரம் முடிக்க முடியும்னோ at the same time cost also has to be efficient and time also has to be அப்போதான் it is correct, isn't it? Intellect has exactly the opposite method. Intellect grows because in a hurry it doesn't grow. The world is in a hurry. Everybody is in a hurry. And what is hurry? All planning is based on what? இது வேணும். What is the cost? Cost. How to make it cost efficient? Okay, I can make it cost efficient, but quality will come down immediately. No, you don't have moola. Moola illa, another you are talking like that. Intelligence means what? Give the same product in a short possible time. Are you able to follow? All instruments we developed, all science and technology is growing on one fundamental point only. What is the fundamental point? Minimum effort, minimum time, maximum result. Minimum time, minimum effort, maximum profit. என்ன வேதாந்தா பேசுறதுன்னே புரியாது இந்த சொசைட்டி கிட்ட. What Vedanta we are trying to talk to this generation, to this society, and people also nodding their head to and understanding. God only knows what is happening inside, isn't it? What is intellect? You gain in information, stay with it for a while, reflect on it, discuss it. Remember the 4 quarters of knowledge. That's how intellect grows. The 4 quarters. The first quarter is from the book, the guru, the book. Second quarter is your own effort, self-study, your own reflection. Yeah. சுவாத்தியாய ஞான யஜ்ஞம் அது அதெல்லாம் இல்லை, சும்மா செல்ஃப் ஸ்டடி, அவ்வளவுதான், isn't it? Self study. Number 3, discussing it with peers. After doing all the 3, waiting, time. These are the 4 quarters to gain knowledge. Intellect gets strong. A human being first முடியாது. Second is memorizing. Discussion, we don't know what is to discuss. Fourth is no time. Hurry, isn't it? No hurry. In a hurry, because we want to conclude the understanding and say that's it, leave it. Because the hurry is to conclude. Why are we in a hurry? We want to conclude. We can't say keep it open and let us think about it again next week. Mind cannot accept it. It has to conclude. Abhada, it's done. Are you able to follow? The Vedanta Academy model is recommended not because of the Vedanta Academy. It is the principle upon which that model is running. This is the principle. What is the principle? Give time. You need time to take in the information. You need time to process that information. You need time to discuss that and then keep doing your actions so that time. Sir, the world is such a, you don't understand, the world is so competitive, sir. Yeah, it's all running so fast. Good strain, nothing will move. We will be lagging behind. Our children will be lagging behind. What is the effective method? The method is not effective enough, isn't it? And this method and all is very nice. Okay. What is the effective method? The power of the intellect, the sharpness of the intellect. This is where people don't understand. The sharpness of the intellect compensates for everything, and you will be always 3 steps ahead, even amongst the most intelligent in that. Since people are not able to penetrate and understand this, they are in a worry. They're able to understand the crisis now. All this is what is happening. You need time factor. All that being discussed. Then what is the crisis? The hurry is the crisis. The hurry is the crisis. And what is the hurry? It should happen. Should happen. Should happen. It should happen. 9 months in the womb is too much, sir. Why do we wait for 9 months and all? Why not make it? Why not do something and make it in 3 months? It will come out. Only thing is, it won't be a human child. That's all. What will come out, God only knows. But one thing will be sure, it won't be a human. It won't be a human child. This is the present crisis. Are you able to follow? This is the present. This is the present crisis. So when he's talking about the Vedanta Academy model, institutions has to be set up based on the formula. Again, institution has to be set up based on the formula. Not necessarily the white kurta, white dhoti and white mala setup. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is the principles has to be, the principle is what is talking about. You follow? It's not the menu there that is followed has to be followed. It is not the dhoti, kurta, mala that you put, it will become mala. It is not that. The formulas. But invariably what happens, even when people come in here, in a hurry, they think what? In a hurry, they think, if I dress like a Buddha, walk like a Buddha, talk like a Buddha, sit in the meditative posture like Buddha, Buddha sits, I'll also become a Buddha, isn't it? The crisis is the intellect is not understood, the methodology is not understood. In a hurry, they want to short circuit the method. Okay, you can short circuit. What will happen? Intelligence will develop and there will not be any intellect. Okay, what is the crisis of lack of intellect? If you want to understand the crisis of lack of intellect, that is why Bhagavad Gita talks about Arjuna as a student in crisis. That's why Bhagavad Gita talks about Arjuna as a student in crisis. And why do they talk about Arjuna as a student in crisis? You will never find an Upanishadic student going to the Guru and saying, I don't know what to do. My knees are pain. My knees are knocking. Head is paining. I'm trembling. I'm shivering. You will never find an Upanishadic student going and talking to the Guru like that. Correct? What is Arjuna talking? What is Arjuna saying? My head is spinning. Hands are shivering. Knees are knocking. Gandiva has become the walking stick now, isn't it? After a few verses, he can't even hold the Gandiva and stand. He's sitting down now. This is the symbolic representation of the crisis. How does this represent crisis? For which you need to know who is Arjuna first. Only if you know who is Arjuna, you will understand the crisis. If you don't know who is Arjuna, you will never know the crisis. And who is Arjuna? Who is Arjuna? The best in the clan. Okay. Who's the best in the clan? Who would you call as the best in the clan now? Harvard, Stanford, Solama. Arjuna, they don't come closer to Arjuna because they learn only one thing there. Here Arjuna knows 15 things, isn't it? Not superficially. He knows 15 in depth. He is best in that. In warfare, he is the best. The wealth that he had, Dhananjaya. That's why his name is Dhananjaya. Warfare, he is the best. Savyasachin, ambidextrous. He can shoot arrows with both right hand and left hand. He's a great musician. He's a great dancer. He's a great musician. He's a great dancer. So you look at him. How can that person get into depression? Not having that only you will get into depression, isn't it? Because you don't have it, you want it, you getting into depression is understandable. Having all this, if a person gets into depression, that is the crisis. That's where Bhagavad Gita starts with this scene. What is the scene? The best in the clan sitting and crying, saying, I can't do what? He's sitting and crying, saying, I can't do what? What he is best at. What he is best at, isn't it? His whole lifetime training is battlefield. His whole lifetime training is war. In a situation, he couldn't. Why? The mind lost. The mind couldn't be guided. When the mind is not guided, actions, either you become immobile or you do wrong action. What is wrong action Arjuna wanted to do? Let us run away. Forgive them and we will run away. A God would have agreed with that, no? Isn't it? A God would have agreed with that, isn't it? Correct. Just for one fellow's kingdom, just for five fellows, you kill 45 lakhs, isn't it? You kill 45 lakhs, that too in 18 days for five fellows. How? Even a Rakshasa will not do that, no. And why is the God sitting there supporting that? This is Bhagavad Gita. The crisis is, are you able to understand the crisis now? First we explain what is happening from the practical way. Then we spoke about the Vedanta Academy model. Then we spoke about the example that he gave from the worldly sense also. You need a sharp intellect. So combined all this, what is the crisis? Any amount of worldly preparation without the intellect, the end result will be a crisis. Any amount of intelligence, any amount of worldly knowledge, any amount of worldly achievements, the end result will be crisis only. And you cannot avoid the crisis. Or if you want to avoid the crisis, follow the method. The challenge here is what? To expose people to the crisis. Are you okay till now? Now comes the real crisis. Now comes the real crisis. This crisis you should understand inside of you. Then only it is complete. Correct, sir. World needs intellect. That's why I want to go around the world lecturing to people that they should develop the intellect. Now, what is the crisis? The crisis is an understanding that you as an individual in you is in crisis. Opposite of that is an understanding where I go around telling others. That is not crisis. That is simply, what is that? Blind leading the blind. That is simply known as the blind leading the blind. When one blind person leads the whole lot, where will they fall? All will go into destruction. Therefore, the culmination of present crisis is what? You as an individual should understand that you need to strengthen the intellect. Not to worry or talk about the world lacking it. How do I go on resurrect the world? How do I go and correct the world? This question was asked to Vivekananda. Have you come to reform the world? He said, God didn't create the world thinking that Vivekananda will come to protect it. Because when he created it, he made it perfect only. All that I am saying is don't mess it up. That's all. Yeah. Same question was asked to Ramatirtha. Have you come to reform the world? Ramatirtha said, reforming the world is like straightening the dog's tail. What is the straighten mannalum, as soon as you leave it, what will happen? It will go back. So the present crisis is not an external crisis. The present crisis, you have to understand it as internal, in you as an individual. Once in you as an individual, you have understood it and conquered it. You become a sreshta for that generation. Once you have understood this as a crisis inside, and you have learnt it, overcome it, you become a sreshta. Sreshta means you become of some use to those around you. If you have not conquered the crisis inside of you, telling others that strengthen the intellect won't work at all. Therefore, the present crisis is lack of intellect. And when we say lack of intellect, everybody who's reading the book, all those who are listening should understand the crisis as internal. Don't look at the other person and say, isn't it? You don't look at the other person and say it is for you only. See, you all don't have an intellect. Therefore, better develop an intellect. WhatsApp forward, isn't it? It's not for that. It is meant for to be understood as the crisis that is happening internally in each and every individual. We'll read the next topic, the present predicament. There is no predicament, I think, isn't it? There is no the present predicament. bereft of intellectual governance, the mind has developed attachment and possessiveness towards practically all aspects of the world. That has destroyed the peace and harmony among human beings all over. And the people are reeling under suffering and sorrow. There arises the urgent need to build, strengthen the human intellect. The problems facing the development of the intellect are manifold. Number one, primarily, people around the world are unaware of the existence of the intellect. Even educational institutions, teachers, and scholars only understand and deal with antecedent knowledge laid down by their predecessors. None have a clue of the intellect and the vital role it plays in human life. Number two, the intelligentsia with all their erudition and scholarship are not necessarily intellectuals. They may possess abundance of knowledge, but lack the sharpness of the intellect to handle the affairs of the world. Thus, many such luminaries, scholars, and scientists have succumbed to the pressures of the mind. They fall a prey to various addictions. Some have turned into alcoholics, drug addicts. Others have become hysterical, victims of marital confrontation and divorce. These are some expressions of the mind's domination over inner personality, wherein a weak intellect lies low, watching helplessly the mind's devastating effects. Notwithstanding these debacles that humans are facing, few realize the role of the intellect and the necessity to render it powerful to keep the mind under control. Number three, people at all levels find themselves totally preoccupied with their affairs in the world. They are lost in the quagmire of mundane perceptions, emotions, and thoughts, and find no time or inclination to understand the vital role of the intellect in human life. As a result, they ignore its development. Number four, also, the general quality of the existing intellect is poor. A weak intellect is unable to visualize, conceptualize the necessity to render it powerful to administer human life. One needs an intellect to evaluate the intellect. Arthur Schopenhauer, the German philosopher, warns, intellect is invisible to the man who has none. 5. There is yet another problem with the lack of effort in building the intellect. Building the intellect takes considerable time and effort. To aggravate the problem further, there are no visual signs of development, no apparent benefits noticed to enthuse one to pursue its development. The above analysis shows the practical difficulties that humans face in building their intellect. Hence, the intellect has remained unattended and developed for centuries on end. Generations after generations, bereft of intellectual strength, have been living a passive life, succumbing to the devastating effects of an ungoverned mind. The people of the world must wake up to this reality, recognize the importance of developing the intellect. The international organizations in charge of human affairs must coalesce with the governments and educational institutions to prepare a well-designed program to resurrect the human intellect. The curriculum at the Vedanta Academy follows the literature contained in the complete works of Swami Parthasarathy. It's a specially designed course for the construction of the intellect for people for all denominations, classes, and creeds. It has to be widened, introduced in all countries to meet the needs of the entire human race. It calls for an emergent action to avoid the virus of attachment threatening to destroy the world. Okay. இப்போ present predicament. So, intellect எல்லாம் very important எல்லாம் சொல்லியாச்சு. What is the difficulty? First, they don't understand that there is a thing called intellect. See, after listening to it for 30, 40 years, also people don't understand the difference between intelligence and intellect. What to talk about those who don't even know it? First is they don't know. Second is intelligence is misunderstood as intellect. Third, preoccupation with the affairs of the world. See, what does preoccupation means? Preoccupation means fulfilling your desires, fulfilling your likes and dislikes becomes the only priority in life. That is preoccupation. What is preoccupation? Preoccupation means your goal in life is to fulfill your desires, likes and dislikes without even questioning any of it. That is the preoccupation. The third. The fourth one is the quality of the existing intellect is poor. Okay, if the existing intellect is poor, it has to be, it needs to have material to exercise it and strengthen it. The material is available in the form of the Shastras, but again, it is not paid attention to in the 5 predicaments. It's not paid attention to. First thing, we'll go one by one. In the Indian tradition, in the Indian culture, the first prayer the human being is introduced is Gayatri Mantra at the age of 7, 8. Before that, there is no prayer. Before that, there is no nothing. You don't take a 2-year-old child, 3-year-old child, 5-year-old and all to a temple. 2-year-old, 3-year-old, 5-year-old, where they should be left. They should be allowed their senses to develop. You don't take them there. But then at the 5 only, isn't it? Even before the child goes to kindergarten, you want the child to become wise, isn't it? What do we do? So the first prayer that is introduced to the child in the Vedic tradition, in the Indian tradition, is the Gayatri Mantra. And what is Gayatri Mantra? Dhyo yona prachodayat. Dhyo yona prachodayat. Dhyo yona prachodayat. Dhyo yona prachodayat means may my intellect be as sharp and penetrative as your rays, O sun. That's Gayatri Mantra. O sun, your rays are very penetrative. When you say very penetrative, means everything is crystal clear in sunlight, isn't it? Just as you make everything so clear, my intellect must be penetrative like that, because then I will be able to see things very clearly. The child is introduced to what? First prayer, strengthen the intellect. Gayatri Mantra. That's why it is at what time the person is initiated into Gayatri? Sir, pre-KG sir, isn't it? Nowadays we are all faster than you, sir. Faster than Vedas. Vedas saying wait for 7 years, 8 years. We are doing it at the age of 2 years, isn't it? Long back in Mysore, I was going for the walk. The play school. Yeah, I'm trying to remember the name of that school because the gradations of school now, no, play school, kindergarten, and then comes school, and then comes high school. That's a sequence, no? Correct a sequence. Play school now first, isn't it? Play school. Yeah. I'm going to schooling them, isn't it? Play school. So when I was going for a walk, that play school teacher said, Sir, naliki kandipa vandirungo, graduation day tomorrow. He's saying graduation day, tomorrow, please come. I thought she's talking about her graduation. Yeah, I said, yeah, கண்டிப்பா வந்துடுறேன். எங்க வரணும்? ஸ்கூலுக்கு தான் வரணும். Swati, my daughter is getting graduated. What? 1.5 years to 2 years. அது கம்முன்னு விட்டுருந்தாலே she would have graduated by herself, isn't it? So Vedanta very old, sir, very backward. They say wait for 7 years and all. We started 1.5 years itself. We start. What do we start? We don't start with the buddhi. We don't start with buddhi. What do we start with? Learn a skill, learn a method by which you can fulfill your desires with minimum effort, minimum time. That's the intelligence. Are you able to understand the difference now? That's the intelligence. So all systems are driven towards that. All systems are driven towards what? None have a clue. That's the first predicament, is to tell people that there is the thing called intellect is the first predicament. Second predicament is what? Those who understand the erudition and scholarship and all that is misunderstood as intellectual. Who is an intellectual? Who is an intellectual? Carefully follow. Intellectual na puriyarade kashtam modalla. Who is an intellectual? I will talk about it for a few minutes now. Okay. Who is an intellectual? Number one, intellectual is what is known as inferential. Intellectual means inferential. When you say intellectual, you mean anything that is arrived at inferentially. That's why it's called cognition through the senses and recognition through the intellect, which is inference. What you have perceived is what you have to sit and infer. Do you understand inference? First, the senses has to perceive. What the senses have perceived only, the intellect has to come into play and infer. So what is intellectual now? Intellectual means you arrive at anything through inference, inferentially. To arrive at something inferentially, you need a unique inner nature. To arrive at something inferentially, you need a very unique inner nature. What is that unique inner nature? You can call it open-mindedness. You can call it Shraddha. In Vedanta, we call it as Shraddha. The Shraddha with which you approach the subject makes you an intellectual, inferential. Are you okay till now? Okay. What is Shraddha? You are questioning your understanding till you see in the way it ought to be seen. That is Shraddha. Again, I repeat. What is Shraddha? See, there are two ways. One is you question the teaching. Another is you can go on questioning your understanding. Invariably, what do we question? எனக்கு புரிஞ்சிடுது சார், இதுதான் கரெக்ட். மிச்சதெல்லாம் since I have understood it in this way, this alone is correct. And all other methodology of understanding is wrong. It's like there are 5 roads. One driver has gotten used to one road. You got used to another road to reach the same destination. You sit and and the driver is taking that road, immediately you will say what? What will you say? Destination is very clear. No, he is also taking you to the destination only. But then what happens? You are used to one, and that becomes the only way. Now, who's an inferential? Now, who's an intellectual now? Who's an intellectual now? You question not the teaching, you question your understanding until you see it in the way it ought to be seen. Vedanta is a means of knowledge that requires a teacher to wield the words properly. Vedanta is a means of knowledge that requires a teacher to use the words properly. Why? Because you cannot figure it out by yourself. You cannot figure it out by yourself. Since you cannot figure it out by yourself, a readiness is required, a openness is required. That readiness, that openness with which you approach this subject, learn, digest, understand, makes you an intellectual. Nobody does it. They all become information carriers. They all become carriers of information. What is carriers of information means? The knowledge that you have will not help you. That is intelligence. What is intelligence? Intelligence is the knowledge that you have will not help you is intelligence. Intellect means the knowledge that you have will help you. Imagine a person teaching others on the ill effects of smoking, and that person is smoking. What would you call that as? Imagine a person who is lecturing to others on the ill effects of smoking. Listening to him, people quit smoking. But this person is continuing to smoke. What would you call that as? His own mind, he's not able to control his own mind. He's a victim of his mind. So the knowledge that he has is of no help to oneself. When it is of no use to you, it will not be of any use to others also. So the second problem is what? In the present predicament, what is the second problem? The distinction between these two is not understood. How does teaching happens? This is how teaching happens. Carefully follow. How does teaching happen? This is how teaching happens. Mind is a myth. A statement is made. Mind is a myth. If it is an arbitrary statement, it becomes difficult for you to accept it. Because it is just somebody making a statement. Supposing if the person making the statement is attempting to teach it, attempting to elaborate it, then it's not an arbitrary statement. Are you able to understand the difference between intelligence and intellect? Intelligence is statements are made and you will be asked to swallow. That's it. Intellect means same statements will be made and attempts will be made to elaborate it, teach it, expand it, expound it, answer all your clarifications. invariably what happens? Statements are made and the person who's making the statement don't understand. The person who's receiving the statement don't question, as a result of which lot of intelligence gets passed around, but hardly there is any intellect. Are you able to understand the difference now? Lot of intelligence gets passed around, but hardly there is any. For example, if I say he is doing a good job. For example, if I say that person is doing a good job, it's an opinion, a relative issue it is. Supposing if we say the sky is not blue, blue sky is a myth. If it is told, what is the difference between the two? At one level, your opinion is spoken. In the another statement, a law of life is spoken. Intellectual means one who can distinguish all this. That is an intellectual. Invariably, the opinions are taken as the law. Why the opinions are taken as the law? Because your mind is attached to that person. When the mind is attached to a person, whatever that person says becomes a law. Are you able to follow? In Vedanta, how the intellect is developed? First, the statement is made. The blue sky is a myth. The blue sky is a myth. Statement is made. If they say the blue sky is a myth, what should you do? Normally, what should you do? Kannala blue color paakren, how can you come and say it as a myth? That is the starting point of intellect. Are you able to follow? They are saying something which is so contradictory to your thing. So naturally, what should be the first question? How do you say it? Another way is, why are you confusing me? It is so clear, sky is blue. I will not even listen to you anymore. I will not listen to you at all because my perception says sky is blue and sky is blue. That's all. Are you able to understand the two different approaches? One approach is the sky is blue, full stop. What you are talking is wrong because my perception proves it very clearly that sky is blue. Intellect, by what approach the intellect grows? I question. When I question, I understand that person has no intention of confusing me. That person is not trying to brainwash me, but they are attempting to make me see something which is not that obvious. This approach is intellectual. Are you able to follow? This approach is what makes you an intellectual. They have no intention of confusing you. They have no intention of coming and teaching you the wrong things. And yet, they are able to say that the sky is not blue. And they are also ready to follow it up with elaboration, logic, reason, analysis, what we call as tarka, nyaya, all that. where statement is made, followed by logic, followed by reason, followed by analysis, and repeated again and again and again and again and again till you grasp what? Even though I am seeing sky as blue, there is no blue sky, correct? Even though the sun doesn't rise and the sun doesn't set, I will still use sunrise and sunset in my vocabulary. Even though I know sun doesn't rise, even though I know sun doesn't set, I will still use sunrise and sunset in my vocabulary. Are you able to follow these examples? One is to by heart it and going on repeating it. Oh, sun doesn't rise, sun doesn't set, sun doesn't rise, sun doesn't. But deep down, I am so convinced what? Sun actually rises and sun actually sets. Even though I keep teaching that there is no blue sky, blue sky, blue sky, deep down, I am very convinced what? Sky is blue. There is no joy in the world. There is no happiness in the world. There is no joy in the world. There is no happiness in the world. Sky blue, madri, isn't it? I go on repeating it to others while deep down I am so convinced. What? Is that lack of intellect? Are you able to understand now? The world cannot trouble you. The world cannot trouble you. The world cannot trouble you. I keep repeating it to everybody while deep down I am so convinced. What? It is the world that troubles. Correct? This is the difference. So, those who carry this information by heart it, repeat it, sometimes the way they can teach it, elaborate it, even Shankaracharya will be, even a Shankaracharya will get, will feel that he is not knowledgeable in compared to a professor. Yeah. But what is the difference? The difference is intelligence and the intellect. The second predicament. What is the second predicament now that he's talking about? Expressions of the mind is an indication of whether intellect is there or not. Okay, intellect, yeah, this is a fall of human intellect class, isn't it? What is the text that we are studying? The text is Srikanth. Fall of human intellect. Aparna, what is the text we are studying? Holocaust of Attachment. Correct. Ella text in the class we really don't know which text we are reading. It doesn't matter any text. Simply sit and simply sit and listen until wait till 9 o'clock. Only one more minute is there. We'll wind up also now. Yeah. A break till tomorrow morning again. What is it? Anything that is arrived at questioning your understanding by following the method of logic, reason, analysis, which Shraddha is intellectual. That is an intellectual, because we are trying to distinguish between intelligence and an intellect. A statement is made without elaborating, you need not accept it. A statement is made, but then the statement is being attempted to teach. Attempting to teach is the challenge here. It is not just a statement. There is an attempt to teach. As long as teaching is happening, you are safer. As long as teaching is happening, you are safe. How do we say that? You need to see the teaching clearly. You need not accept. The moment you see the teaching clearly, acceptance happens by itself. Are you able to follow the difference now? As long as statement is made and attempt is made to teach on it, elaborate it, you are safer. Why? Because it is being part of the teaching is what? Questions. And all questions has to be clarified. So when all this is happening, the teaching proves. What does the teaching prove? If we follow it rightly in the way it ought to be done, what does the teaching prove? The teaching proves this. The teaching proves that there is no blue sky. The teaching makes you to see there is no such thing as a blue sky in spite of you seeing a blue sky. In spite of you seeing a blue sky, the teaching makes you to understand that there is no blue sky. It is not a question of having faith in what is being told. It is the question of going through the process and understanding what is being told. Without going through the process of understanding what is being told, if it is taken straight away, that is intelligence. And what is intelligence? You have by-hearted it, you have memorized it, and your mind is disconnected from what you know. Your mind will be completely disconnected from what you know, and it will still have a control on you. That's why we say, no, why are you making that mistake? They ask, isn't it? We turn back and say, from where you got that notion that fellow has studied? The assumption itself is wrong. The assumption is that person has memorized. Now, the mind is disconnected from that. Since the mind is disconnected, what will happen? The predicaments. What is the predicaments that he is listing out? Alcoholics, drug addicts, hysterical, manipulation, isn't it? Manipulation, if you want to go to a doctor, you need a references, no? Why? Because you never know whether the guy is going to tell you the right thing or so manipulative. Even with a known person you go, also the fellow still manipulates. Why? The mind takes over. And the intellect is watching it helplessly. Now, what is the way to outgrow now? What is the way to outgrow? The way to outgrow is following the method. The method la innor problem. Inna problem? Romba slow irukudhu sir idu. It's very slow. It is time consuming. Sutti yargavadu paatha yarugum onnum illa, isn't it? I myself, in me also, there is nothing that is happening. And when I look around the people also, nothing seems to happen. How will you motivate yourself? How can you motivate yourself? That is another predicament. The time factor. Another predicament is what? Paradox of life. What is the paradox of life? The educated understand the importance of education is the paradox, isn't it? If it is uneducated that should understand the importance of education, logically speaking, but in reality, what happens? the paradox. What is the paradox? The educated understand the importance of education. One who has the intellect understands the importance of intellect. Another predicament, preoccupation. What is preoccupation means? Only one thing. What? How to get what I want. Ore thinking, how to get what I want. And when I say how to get what I want, I'm asking for a method, a technique. And how that method and technique should be. How to get what I want. When I say how to get what I want, I'm asking for a method, a technique. And when I ask for a method and technique, what I ask in that method and technique? Minimum time. What is the fastest to minimum? Minimum time, minimum effort, cost, efficient, result should not be diminishing, isn't it? Result must not diminish at all, but all this will be cheap and best, sir, isn't it? Isn't it? Cheap and best. Either it is cheap or it is best. Cheap and best. How both will go together? This is the mind playing a victim. This is the mind being powerful, and the human being is a victim of this mind. So what do you have to do now? You have to trick the mind into believe that it is the best. It is cheap only, but you have to trick the mind into believing that it is best. How to trick the mind into believing that it is the best? Same phone, sir. And the sticker goes to cost, isn't it? Same phone, sir. Apple phone same. Just because they put one Apple sticker behind, the cost. So what do you do now? What do you do now? Take the sticker and put it in that. And trick the mind into believing that it has got the best. Vedanta says, you take your fingers and you poke at your eyes. Is there anything worse than that? Clear. You take your fingers and poke at your eyes. சொந்த செலவுல சூன்யம் வச்சுக்கிறதுக்கு பேர் தான் intelligence. You go to the fellow and say, whose life you pay that fellow. Yeah, you go to that fellow, you pay that fellow. And the fellow is asked, okay, I'll make the life of this person miserable. Who's that person? I am that person. This is intelligence. The present predicament. With this, we conclude for today and we continue with the next topic, the part the intellect plays in the next session. We'll continue next week.
Mala has posted it.
Mala has posted. Quick Mala. All the Sanskrit prayer shlokas, etc., make sense if the Sanskrit language and the bhava is understood. I do not know why elders say it is okay not to understand the language meaning. Vedic mantras are powerful enough to give the result. This is repeatedly said by every Pandit. Is it the case? No, it is not the case. The chanting has a lyrical beauty. The lyrical beauty brings about a temporary calmness. Understand that. The chanting by itself will not make you develop the intellect. If the chanting by itself can make, teaching is not needed, schools are not needed, books are not needed. All that is needed is what? Classes, chanting classes enough, isn't it? It works. the lyrical beauty is so wonderful that it can bring about a temporary calmness. That's all. Therefore, meaning la purivana, just chant, that is enough. If anybody says that, you have used the right word. Pandit dhaan, isn't it? He is repeating it. He doesn't know what he is repeating. We are not criticizing them, we are not blaming them. It has a temporary effect of calming the mind. How long it can calm? Till you get neutralized. Huh? இங்க ஒரு பண்டிட் இருக்கிறாங்க இந்த கிளாஸ்லயே. One look at her, you know that she is no way near any understanding or calm mind. Okay. In this classroom also there is a, oh my God, I can't chant. The way that she can chant, the way that she knows the stuff, oh my God. I prostrate to her when I see her. But no way near any calm mind, no way near any normal clarity of life itself. What do you do? Not you, Vasanti. It's not you. Huh? So, ellarum Vasantiye paakadingo. I'm not talking about Vasanti here. All the Sanskrit players, slogas, etc. make sense if the language is understood. If the language is understood, the bhava follows. Otherwise, it's a soothing effect of music, which will be there temporarily. There is no bhava there. Please understand the difference. Mala, puri the difference. Only when the meaning is understood, the real bhava comes. Without knowing the meaning, the real bhava won't come. The music will have a soothing effect. That soothing effect, don't misunderstand it as you got the right bhavana and all. Are you able to understand the difference, Mala? Therefore, as there is a temporary method of the music and all that having a lyrical beauty, etc., bringing a temporary calmness, the real bhava comes only with understanding. There is no other method. Human beings are destined to grow only through knowledge. There is no other method. If there is any other method for a human being to grow other than knowledge, it would be very good. But the tragedy is there is no other method. But knowledge takes so much of time. The mind in a hurry wants shortcuts. Knowledge takes so much of time to digest, understand, put it into practice and all that. The mind in a hurry wants shortcuts. And what is the shortcut? In the age of Kali, sir, just chant the Lord's name, that is enough. Isn't it? Just in the age of Kali Yuga, the easiest method, if anybody comes and says easiest method, you should be careful of that person. Again, I repeat, Mala, யாராவது வந்து இருக்கிறதுல இதுதான் ஈஸியான மெத்தட்னா you should be careful about that person. Why? That person is using your weakness. You already have a weakness. What is the weakness? Whole day class அதான் discuss பண்ணோம். What is the weakness? Minimum time, minimum effort, maximum result. Already you have that weakness and they are just exploiting that weakness. Knowledge comes and says, knowledge will have the courage to say it's a weakness and you should get out of it. Then only the intellect grows. We don't say it as strength. We say it's a weakness. And unless you accept it as a weakness, intellect can never. Are you okay, Mala? The lyrical beauty produces a temporary calmness that has not improved your bhava, bhavana, bhakti yoga improve ஆகலாங்க. என்ன நல்லா இருக்குது கொஞ்ச நேரம் கேட்கறதுக்கு, isn't it? என்னமோ பேசினாங்க சார், என்ன பேசினாங்களாம் புரியல, ஆனா கேட்க நல்லா இருந்துச்சு, isn't it? There is no other method other than knowledge and understanding. Okay, Malla?
There is one more posted by her.
இன்னும் என்ன இருக்குது? Don't see. Ego is another reason for not reflecting, in addition to being in a hurry. Ego or arrogance that I am right and you are wrong is a culprit that makes a person dominate and walk trouble-free. Correct. So I'm able to break my ego, though it takes time, but not others. Their egoistic domination affects me because I'm attached and looking for affection. Why is it a struggle to remove the dependence on them? Malla, very correct. இந்த முதல்ல கேள்வி கேட்டாலும் everybody is getting angry. Okay? Because all are having the same problem. It's not only your problem. Huh? The question that she is asking is, why is it a struggle to remove the dependence on the others? Why it is a struggle? I am able to break my ego. You can only break your ego. Though it takes time, correct. You can break your ego, though it takes time. Their egoistic domination affects me. The egoistic domination of the others affects you. Why? Even here you have rightly understood. Because you are attached to them and looking for affection from them. Mala, you have answered it very clearly. Why is it a struggle to remove the dependence on them? As long as you are attached to them and think that affection can come only from them, they will dominate you. Again, I repeat, how does anybody dominate you? Affection can come only from them. That's why I go and beg for affection at the feet of others. I fall at the feet of others, asking them, make me happy, make me happy, make me happy. The moment I go and fall at somebody's feet and tell them, make me happy, obviously by default, whether they intend to dominate or not, they are dominating already. Are you able to follow? Sometimes they may not dominate, but you feel that way. Why? Because of your very slavery. They may not intend to dominate at times, but you may feel it that way. Why? Because of your slavery. What is your slavery? Dependence on them. Dependence on them. Carefully follow this. The law. You will hate to those on whom you are dependent. You can never be dependent and love. Take it or leave it. The law is this. You will hate to those on whom you are dependent. Why? Because they are the one who's controlling you. You have become a kind of, not kind of a law, you have actually become a slave. Are you okay, Mala? So you are very wanting it is what makes it looks like. It is what that makes you feel that they are dominating. At times they will dominate, at times they may not dominate. Whether they dominate or they do not dominate, you will always feel the same. Why? Because you are begging. What is beggary? Make me happy. Make me happy. My happiness is in your hands. Why don't you understand that and keep me happy? Why don't you understand that and keep is what the transaction is? If we say this, the human being will go to the other extreme of indifference. They don't care. Either it is being a slave or becoming indifferent, and the mind oscillates. What is the right way? You are not dependent, and you serve them. You are not dependent, and you serve. I am right, you are wrong. இப்போ பேசலாம்னு தான் starting point of all conversations is what? The starting point of all conversations is what? Mala, again you have said it very right. I am right, you are wrong. வாங்க இப்போ பேசலாம் அப்படின்னா what conversation can happen after that? There's no conversation. There's only a constant attempt to prove what? I walk into a conversation with I am right, you are wrong. You will walk into the conversation with the same attitude. What is attitude? That you are right and I am wrong. So first ரெண்டு பேரும் என்ன ப்ரூவ் பண்ணிக்கணும்? என்ன ப்ரூவ் பண்ணணும்? முதல்ல you are wrong னு ப்ரூவ் பண்ணணும். The attempt that I make to prove that you are wrong itself is so agitating that you can't listen to me after that. You follow? Why is it so difficult to get rid of the dependency? It is so difficult to get rid of the dependency because you believe that they can make you happy. The moment you realize that your happiness comes through service and sacrifice, there's no problem. Nobody will dominate you after that. Now I am giving the solution. The moment you start living the life of service and sacrifice, you will never feel anybody dominating you after that. Do you follow? How to get over it? Turn that life into service and sacrifice. But sir, how long do I keep serving and sacrificing? Another problem. Adhe time factor vandrum. How long? எவ்வளோ பண்ணிட்டேன், இது கூட இன்னும் பத்தலையா? How long do I keep serving and how long do I keep sacrificing? How long? விஜய், எவ்வளோ நாள்ப்பா? Till the last breath. Till the last breath. That person will never feel dominated. That person will never feel affected. Socrates was choking to death. Socrates was choking to death. The students were watching him. One of the most painful situations is like the guru takes the poison and choking himself to death, and all the students are sitting and watching helplessly. He was choking to death. You have never asked us for anything. At least now ask for something. No, they said. You have never asked us for anything. At least now ask for something. No. I promised a cock to my neighbor. Please give that neighbor the cock, he said. And he died. Socrates. I told my neighbor that I'll get a cock. Now that I'm dying, I can't fulfill that. So if you really want to do something, buy him that cock. That fellow, when he is drinking poison also, he will not feel. Yeah. அவருக்கு பாய்சன் கூட பால் பாயசம் மாதிரி இருக்கும், isn't it? So affectionately, so blissfully he can take it. Are you able to understand the difference? So how to get over it? Turn your life into service and sacrifice. Nobody can dominate you after that. For how long to serve? So நானே பண்ணிருந்தா போருமா? அவங்களும் கொஞ்சம் பண்ணணும்ல. நானே சமைக்கணும், நானே பாத்திரமும் கழுவணுமா? Isn't it? நான் சமைச்சா அவங்க பாத்திரம் கழுவட்டும், அவங்க சமைச்சா நான் பாத்திரம் கழுவணும். இதுக்கு என்ன இது? அப்படியே ஒன் சைடு இப்படி பேசினே இருந்தா what will happen? You will become a wise person. அவ்வளவுதான். If you do this one way, you will become a wise person. Okay, Mala? Yeah. We'll continue next week.
Hari has a clarification.
Hari, sorry. Hari, I am not able to see. That's why I have a person to tell me. Hari, where is he? Hari, cholungo.
Hari Om.
Yes.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
Yes, cholungo. Yes, we can hear you.
My first question is, when we are talking about the hurry,
Yeah.
is it also because of the need for instant gratification
Yes.
that we are not ready to delay? We are not
Yes.
in tune with the delayed gratification. I want it immediately, whatever I want.
Yes. There's no delayed gratification. We want everything instantly. You are right. Correct. The hurry is because it has to happen now, immediately. Yes, you are right. Are you able to follow? The hurry is because we want instant gratification. It has to happen now. Everything has to happen
Now.
Now.
Another question that I have got is, when you were talking intellectual means inferential,
Yes.
which eventually indirectly or directly tells that I have to have experience.
Yes, definitely yes. That is why we say inferential means
Only then I.
Yes, correct. Inferential means one who has one who's having some experience, and one who's having an experience, and experience is the data upon which the knowledge is processed. You are right. You have an experience. The sky is blue is an experience. There is no blue sky is the statement.
But elsewhere we were taught that that we should not always after experience.
Yeah.
So
That is why. Yes.
Is there a contradiction between when you say intellectual means inferential, at the same time?
Yes.
We have been taught that we should not go after experience.
Yes. Hari. Very good clarification. Experience should not be taken as the conclusive knowledge. That's what we mean there. What we mean there is, we don't take experience as a conclusive knowledge. Generally, what happens is experiences are taken as conclusive knowledge. We say, no, don't take experience as a conclusive knowledge. Experience is the data, and you have to process it and then come to an understanding. Are you able to understand the difference now? Experiences is not knowledge. Generally, people believe experience itself as knowledge. That is the difference. When we say intellectual is one who has not concluded experiences as knowledge. Experience is the data upon which I have to operate and conclude. That's the difference. Most of the time, misunderstanding that people make is they take experiences as knowledge. Experiences are not knowledge. That's why it's called pratyaksha pramanam. Pratyaksha pramanam is not a thing. It has to be anumana. Anumana means what you have seen, you work on it. What you have seen, you work on it. You follow?
Yeah.
Yes. Therefore, it's not a contradiction.
Okay.
Therefore, it's not a contradiction. Otherwise, it appears to be a contradiction. It's not a contradiction. You follow?
Okay. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, right. Venkat, over? Yeah, we'll continue next week.